Disclaimer: the views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. Listener discretion is advised. Cameron Logsdon is one of the fastest rising comedians from the Midwest. He's earned millions of views on social media platforms for his celebrity impressions and short videos parodying everything from politics to pop culture. Many of the videos he's made impersonating Mark Wahlberg and Ryan Reynolds have gone viral and caught national attention. He's from a place near and dear to my heart, Omaha, Nebraska, and he was named Best Comedian in Omaha by the Omaha Entertainment and Arts Awards in both 2022 and 2023. With almost 200,000 followers on Instagram and almost 1 million on TikTok, Cameron Logsdon is on the podcast today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Caught on the Mic. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard me talk about it time and time again. I bring up the pandemic to a fatiguing extent, and because without the pandemic, I probably wouldn't have this podcast. But something else that blew up during the pandemic was that fun little social media app that's probably going to get banned by our government, TikTok. With me today is an impressionist, a stand-up comic from my hometown of Omaha, Nebraska. Cameron Logsdon, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
You've been doing the stand-up comedy thing for quite a while now.
Yeah, I've been doing stand-up comedy for just short of 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Been doing comedy a long time, just comedy in general. Yeah.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about your origin story. So without any further ado, why don't you introduce yourself? Let's kind of go through the steps.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started, I was adopted by a farmer in Kansas, and when I was about 13, I discovered I had superpowers.
Yes!
You say origin story, it makes it sound like I don't know that I can deliver anything that's going to be as epic of to like meet the standards of an origin story. But I got my start. I was born in Omaha, and I grew up here, and I had always done some kind of performance in my life. Like when I was a kid, I was just talkative, I was loud, and I would do voices and kind of just little shows to entertain my family and friends and stuff. I kind of got in, and then I've always just kind of had an interest in any kind of creative or art or performance thing. And, I really ran the gamut of it. I was in high school or middle school when like 8 Mile came out. And so we were freestyling all the time. And then I did slam poetry for a long time, which I don't like to talk about a ton because it's slam poetry, but I do have a lot of respect for the people who do it. And I did like speech, like competitive speech stuff. So I had all this, like a little bit of theater, not a lot of theater because it required so much time. But I did all of this different types of performance things. And ultimately what, the long and the short of it is it kind of led to, I found that most performance things for me were kind of a dead end, or I kind of like figured it out and like, okay, you get to a certain point. It's like, I could go all in on this, or I could turn back and maybe try a different route. And comedy was the only one to me that like had, it was like being lost in a corn maze, which is Nebraska centric stuff. It was like being lost in a corn maze in the way that I was like, oh, I could keep going down this forever. Like, I don't know if I'll ever figure it out. And so I just really liked it. Like, of all the different performance things that I've done over the years, comedy has been the one that has kind of just kept my attention and held it. It's like this long puzzle that you're just trying to constantly figure out what's new, what works, what doesn't, what flops, what hurts so bad because you're bombing so hard. But you can't go out like that. So you just got to keep coming back to it. And so to me, it's been just the past decade or so has just been this perpetual chase where I'm like, I just want to figure out how this whole thing works and keep taking it apart and take the parts apart. And so that's kind of what's kept me into it, especially, like I said, I've done so many other different types of performance, but the comedy one is the one to me that is like, I think the hardest. And so the thing I'm like maybe the most drawn to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially creative minded people, kind of dip their toes into a little bit of everything until they find what sticks. Because very similarly, you know, I went through high school thinking I was going to be an actor, and then I end up getting into the whole rock band thing and doing that for years. And I think a lot of people have a similar story and a similar trajectory in that light.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably it. Like, you're on it, right? Like, if you're a creative person, you dabble in all the things, and then you just kind of have a preference. You know, you have a preference, the thing that like clicks for you. And my biggest regret is that I didn't figure it out sooner. You know, I was like, I think I was like trying too hard to be too serious, and maybe I was like just, who knows, going through it or whatever. And I was like, no, like art is pain, is life, is blah. And then I was like, oh no, that actually sucks, and it's way funnier now that you think about it. Then you're like, really, was it pain, was it you know, it's like, no, you're all right, you're okay. Like, the world is a lot harder than you're making it out to be. You'll be all right, you know, so maybe have some fun, smile,
right,
you know.
Exactly. Not to dip my toes into having a behavioral science degree that I don't have, but it's a lot of times you kind of wonder if creative people, really left brain people, aren't commonly misdiagnosed as having ADD because their attention goes so many different directions when they are creative like that.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I would definitely say like working in creative areas my whole life, I feel like a lot of people have kind of been, you know, like diagnosed or have or like truly experienced those things. But I also think like the nice thing about anything creative is it's all like a big web, you know, and everything is so similar. Like you're great with podcasting, but that comes from probably being able to act and just learning to talk to people and doing shows and like, you know, both on the technical side and just a level of comfort talking to different kinds of people in different spaces. Like all of that is probably the connected stuff that you have. And I definitely see the through line for a lot of different things, you know?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In a market like Omaha, do you find that it's fairly competitive as far as comedy goes?
If I'm being honest, like no shade to the other comedians in the city that have been here over the years, I wish it was more competitive. You know, I think like the problem with Omaha as a comedy city is a problem that Omaha and a lot of the Midwest has with any industry, which is like people are good. You know, there are good people that are from here. There are good people that are here, but the nature of entertainment, the nature of the field, and really, I think kind of the nature of like being in a small or mid-market is brain drain, right? Like people leave, you know, you get too big for your britches and you move on and you move up and you move out. And so, you know, as somebody who's been doing it in Omaha for less than 10 years still, like as of today, less than 10 years, which in a New York or in LA, that's not a tremendous amount of time for people who've been doing 30, 40, you know, but that makes me a veteran in the Omaha comedy scene. Nobody should be considered a tenured veteran after having done something for less than 10 years. That's not enough time to be a veteran, right? That's not enough time to be the old man on the hill. Like, well, back when I started, like that's not enough. So I think that's the problem that we face, like as a comedy scene. And so I think there are a lot of people here that are good, and when you're starting, it's definitely competitive, but over time you really just kind of have to outlast people because they'll either quit or they'll move, and if you don't, then you know you can rise to the top pretty quickly. Now I definitely work with comedians in town that always keep me pushing myself harder and trying better and trying more, and when new people start, I always feel the need to like get back into the mics and write and be creative and push myself. But I will say that the people that inspire and challenge me the most aren't even here. Like I have to compare myself to what's happening other places. So the thing that I think that is the most competitive part of being in comedy in Omaha is like it's more so just like not becoming comfortable, which I think is like what all of living in the Midwest is about. You know, it's like it's cozy, it's very comfortable, and we all end up 70 years old like, you know what, actually I'd rather just chill out and be here. But when you're young and ambitious, you're like, I like a challenge, you know?
That's a really good way to phrase that all up, because I think you can quantify that across several different arts. Again, talking about our diversified assets here, but you can say the same thing about the music scene. You can say
Hmm.
same thing about the art scene. Like, I think Omaha at large is very underappreciated, but it can also be simultaneously overappreciated. Underappreciated by the people that live outside of it, but sometimes it can
Hmm.
be overappreciated by the people that live in it. So they do get comfortable, get complacent, and they either quit or just, move on too soon before things actually happen. I know when I was doing the music scene for years, there was a common mentality that more is more, and sometimes
Mm,
less is more. And like
yeah.
valuing yourself as that commodity, you are the art, you know? And so you
Right.
have to give people a reason to keep coming back. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That does make sense. And I definitely think like doing comedy or doing anything creative in Omaha, like there are so many opportunities, right? Like if you want to film a sketch or if you want to get on stage, it's a lot easier to not have to kill somebody for stage time or pay to shoot some, you don't have to get permits to shoot in somebody's bar. They just be like, "What? You're filming something?" And then you walk in with your home video camera and they're like, it's so professional, like there are like,
Yeah.
you try to do that in another city, they'd be like, we need money on this. You need a permit. You need to go through all these things. But like people here are so kind and appreciative and it's not as common. So that's definitely the case. But I think sometimes you're right. Like if we get too comfortable, we're not necessarily challenged to grow. And I think that, for the people that listen to your podcast, I think that's true whether you're in the arts or not, whatever
Yeah.
you're doing, it can be
Yeah.
really comfortable to not push yourself to expand. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. It's a line that I use when I lead people is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then you
yeah,
find success, you kind of unlock
yeah.
things. So with that said, what other markets have you explored thus far? Because we're going to get into your social media reach here in a couple of minutes. But
Hmm.
just from the sheer comedy, stand-up comedy standpoint, what are some other markets you've explored, and what are the differences between them and, say, playing in your home city?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been lucky enough to do stand up just about everywhere all across the country. New York to LA, Austin, Minneapolis, New Orleans, DC, Denver, just everywhere. I've done comedy everywhere. Um, and I would say that most places are very similar to Omaha, right? Like most comedy scenes are very similar. They're like relatively small. Some are bigger than others, but it really just kind of goes up in scale. The difference is that like particularly if you look at like a New York or a Chicago or even a Denver, the amount of people doing it is higher,
Yeah.
and so the stage time is less, and people then maximize what they're doing with the time, which in comedy means everybody's writing tighter. They're making better use of their time on stage. And it's like they're just training at a different pace. Like they're just trying to get better faster. They're writing smarter. There's more, it's more competitive, right? Whereas in Omaha, people are forgiving. It's pretty comfortable. It's pretty spacey. It's kind of like being on a sports team and people being like, all right, we have practice at 6 a.m. every day and we're going to bust our butts for the 2 hours that we're on there, versus being like, I don't know, I mean, work out when you feel like it, and everybody have a good game. Like it's just, it's comforting and it's nice. But other markets sometimes are, they just force you to maybe get better. And so going and visiting those places, the thing that I've learned is you can definitely still be just on track with anybody else in any other city, but you have to make use of your time and your space here, while you're in the Midwest, and do the most with what you have available to you. And you can't just take what you have for granted. Like if you can get on stage for, you know, every night for at least make 5 minutes. I mean, there are other people that are trying to get on stage for two,
Right.
and so don't take those things for granted. And it's just like, people that try to buy a house in the Midwest. Houses are cheaper. Don't take it for granted. Like
Right.
make, if you're going to do it, do it. And it doesn't mean that houses are always affordable anywhere, but the point being like, t- appreciate the good things about being here in the heart of the Midwest.
And do you notice that sharpening that sense of efficiency improved you whenever you do come back home and you do a show at home?
Always, always. I always tell comics from here, I'm like, go somewhere else and perform, get your butt whooped, and then come back and try harder. And it always happens. Like I always feel like I'm because on the one hand you're like reassured, you're like, oh, I can hang, like I'm cool, like I'm not out of my league here. But at the same time, you're like, but I could probably be working a little bit harder. So you come back and you're like, let me get some stuff done. And it's always inspiring. I always feel good about it. So that's my feeling. And I always tell comics, get out, play other places and try other stuff and do different things because you'll only be better for it.
Yeah. And again, to quantify that across another artistic platform, I remember when I did my last band. It was my most successful band that I had done up to that point. It got me all the big shows. And I almost didn't do that band. Like 6 months before that band started, my first child was born, and I was like, I'm done doing this shit. I have to do the very conventional, structured life because I'm a dad now. But I ended up sitting on the couch, eating Wheat Thins, watching Scrubs reruns, and 50 pounds heavier while my ex-wife was pregnant. So I was like, okay, I got to get off my ass and do something again. But I worked with a lot of other veterans, and one of the things we did after we got a show ready, I was like, let's not book our first show in Omaha. Let's book it in Des Moines and kind of stage test everything. Because if we can win over a crowd that has absolutely no idea who we are, when we get home, we're going to kick so much ass. And honestly, like, it played out that way. That's exactly how it worked. We came home, we worked out the kinks, and our first show was damn near sold out, and it went gangbusters. So, I mean, long story short, I mean, it goes to kind of what we're talking about here.
Again, I think that's probably true if you're in comedy and music, if you're in theater, if you're a filmmaker, if you're a veterinarian, you know what I mean? Like, hold yourself to the standards of places that maybe are more of it. I don't know. And who knows? Maybe Omaha's leading the pack in veterinarian care. I don't know. But I'm with you.
So I know in 2016, you won a late night writers workshop. Let's talk a little bit about that, because it sounds like you've dabbled in a little bit of writing as well.
Yeah. That's what this man does his stuff, folks. So at the time, I was doing stand up, but I was also interested in late night writing and writing for shows like SNL or the Tonight Show, Seth Meyers, stuff like that. So I was interested in late night writing, and I had taken classes and was working on packets and constantly writing sketches and stuff. At the time, I was recording and filming sketches, but I might do a couple a year and put them on YouTube to no reception, I didn't really understand the pace of things, but I was writing in addition to doing stand-up and stuff. And so I applied to this program. It was this late night writers workshop program. It's a program aimed at it was aimed at helping diverse writers kind of break into the industry. Right. And, for me, one, I'm mixed race. I grew up broke. I was a teen parent. I am from Nebraska, which pick what the thing is that I'm not in the industry. I'm all those things. I was all those things. And so I was like, this is a cool program and I would love just an opportunity to meet. So I applied the year before and didn't get in. I applied again the next year, and I think they got, over 1,000 applications. You just submit a writing packet. It's all writing. They strip your name from it. It's all just your what quality are you submitting? And I got accepted. I, went through an interview round and stuff. And so then after that, I went to New York. And I was at 30 Rock with the NBC head for a week. We spent a week there. It was me and 5 other writers, all of which I'm still in touch with. They're all great and phenomenal. They've all gone on to, one of them has 2 Emmys. 2 of them have been nominated for Emmys. Another one's a great stand-up. I was very lucky to be in this group. I definitely had imposter syndrome being there. But the whole point of it was you're there. They bring in writers from different shows, SNL, Tonight Show, Seth Meyers, all these different late night writers. And they just basically train you up. And they're like, okay, here's what it takes to make it in this business. And here's some insight, here's some connections and things. And that was my first kind of point of validation outside of Omaha.
Sure.
And it was like the biggest thing. It still remains one of the biggest things that I've done in terms of like just being recognized for my talent. And it really changed the trajectory for things because it gave me a connection then to writers and comedians from outside of Omaha and really expanded my network, which then expanded the standards of which I was holding myself to.
Right.
When I'm doing that writer's workshop and then I come home to Omaha and I'm at an open mic with some people that are just kind of messing around, figuring it out. But I'm like on an email thread with somebody who just got nominated for an Emmy for writing for BoJack Horseman. I'm like, try harder, Cam. Like you can't hold it, you got to try harder. It's no shade to anybody here. It just means that like, you can have respect and love for the things you're doing, but just know you're going to get passed up if you don't hold yourself accountable. So that experience was phenomenal for me because it opened up my worldview. It made me feel just a little bit, even though I had imposter syndrome, it was just enough validation to make me feel like, all right, you can keep pursuing this thing and keep going. And it did. It kept me from quitting for a long time because I think that like anything, if you don't see any wins, it's hard, it's a lot of losses in entertainment. It's a lot of losses in any kind of performing thing. You take a lot of L's, you bomb a lot, and you've got to have a couple wins along the way to kind of keep you motivated and reinvigorate you. And that was definitely a big one for me that kept me wanting to keep going.
I think the thing that a lot of people seldom sell short on is the fact that time is the world's most valuable commodity. And once you've spent that time, you don't get it back. So why waste it, right? Like pursue those things and pursue those interests. So now we're going to talk about the fun stuff. What's happened this past 3 years in particular? I've started to see your face pop up on news stories all over the place. What the hell happened in a good way? What exactly happened?
What's interesting is I've just been lucky enough to have a lot of stuff on social media blow up and go really well. I mean, that's the short of it. Like I've had some stuff just go really well. The way that happened was, during the pandemic, I was like a lot of people. Some people said, oh, I'm going to chill and just like take this time off, which I did. But also, I just had that itch and I couldn't go out and perform every night like I was, but I was doing that in Omaha. So I was like, okay, let me start getting online. And I just I opened TikTok up. And like I said, I had been putting out a couple sketches a year on YouTube or maybe a thing every once in a while on Instagram or Facebook. I had a viral video in Omaha go viral on Facebook, but like it was Omaha specific. So it has the reach of Omaha and that was kind of it, But during the kind of the summer of 2020, I finally got TikTok and I was like, okay, let me just start doing stuff. I did a ton of different things. I went in with kind of no strategy, no thoughts to it, just vibes and just putting comedy out. And I did that a lot. I started doing it a lot. And then I figured out that doing impressions and voices and stuff, it's like the perfect platform for that because it's like just such a bite-sized little talent show thing that works on social media, which not everything works on social media. Some, and I've had videos go really well that weren't specifically impressions, but only because I learned basically how social media works a little bit better. So then I think those things had a better chance of being successful. But I started putting more stuff on social media. It started blowing up. It started going, we're talking millions and millions and millions of views on stuff and it's been shared. And I was really lucky to have all that happen. But all it was I was just kind of like a lot of us, I was trapped and I was looking for an outlet and I turned to social media and it connected. I think what helped me connect and do well though, was I didn't just open social media with no background, with no comedic timing, without having had voices or writing or stand up or joke telling ability or on camera present, like all of this stuff that I had been working on in Omaha, it just kind of in my life and around friends and family for so long, I finally had an outlet to push it all into. I doubled down on it, and it for the people that are in the Midwest, it was a gift. Like, social media has been such an opportunity for anybody who felt like they weren't in a market where people could find or discover or whatever them, that I was able to get the stuff that I was making out. And for years I had been holding myself to a standard higher than my circumstances, but I now had an outlet to kind of try to get some of that stuff out. And I was lucky enough that people liked what I was doing, and I just kept doing it more and more. And I've been really, really lucky now to have had some success online.
You are only 250,000 people away from hitting 1 million on TikTok. You are at 188,000 on Instagram.
That's wild.
And I think you niched it down perfectly. It is like sprinkling in your impersonations with little bits of comedy that are already refined. That's definitely going to trigger the algorithm or cause somebody to engage for a lot longer than just some guy that says, okay, I'm going to randomly make a TikTok video.
Yeah. I do feel like, like I said, I'm fortunate in that, like, I understand that, like, the specific thing I'm doing online, like, is it's perfect for online because it's just voices. Boop, 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 boop. Move on. You're done. You're good. But at the same time, one thing that I learned through a lot of trial and error on social media is kind of how things work. And I knew I knew jokes, and I understood writing and all that stuff. So I think there's, like, elements of all that get sprinkled in. And maybe that's what separates me from there are thousands of people that do this thing. But I think the work ethic and a little bit of the other background has maybe helped me break through a little bit more.
Yeah.
The one thing that I understand better now is that if specifically for comedians, like, I understand, like, regardless of what your background is, if I looked at your comedy, I'd be like, okay, now I understand how we can get your voice online and get it through and help you grow and make it work. Whereas I think that's probably the hard part. My thing that I'm doing is just my thing that I'm doing. I'm chasing my fun. But I think if other people chase their fun in their voice and their way, everybody can make social media work for them. And I've just been fortunate enough to figure out how it works for me. At least so far, I don't know. I'm having fun, and that's kind of the thing that keeps me going with it.
I love that. The fact that you've leaned into the whole impersonation side of things. I think back to when I was a kid and I wanted to do acting, right? I was psycho obsessive with Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
It was like always doing impersonations of the impersonation that you just saw on Saturday Night Live. So that's kind of how you honed your craft and you made yourself better, because next thing you know, you're creating your own characters, or you're finding people that, like, your old high school principal, all of a sudden you're able to impersonate him and he becomes a part of an improvisation act or something along those lines. So I think it gets underappreciated and undersold how much better that makes you in the grand scheme of things.
Any artist, I think, is probably worth their salt when they figure out how to start mining their life for inspiration, and that's what makes every person and every, like, artist and every comic and every, painter and every poet and every singer, whatever, that makes them all unique, is because you're pulling so much of your own self. And sometimes it's just figuring out how to get that perspective through. Like, there are people that do impressions. And so, there are a lot of people that do a lot of the same impressions that I do. We all have maybe a slightly different take on them. The thing that I try to do to separate me from a lot of them most of the time is, like, okay, what's my punchline here? Like, what's my joke here?
Right.
Like, how can I make my writing stand out different than just repeating the line from the movie, like the character, So I try to switch that up, but I think that's just my personality coming through. Whereas there are other people who, like, do impressions and stuff specifically that are, like, just, like, the best actors in the world, like, are just phenomenal actors. And so they focus on, like, I think acting things and stuff like that maybe comes through a little bit more, where I'm worried about, all right, what clever way can I spin this that might be more fun? And so that's the comedy part of me coming through. Yeah, but I think that I'm also just pulling from the stuff that makes me me, and infusing that with the stuff that I'm doing that people like. Yeah.
A difference between somebody trying to deep fake another person and just doing
Hmm.
a funny impersonation is like over exaggerating the
Yeah.
qualities that you find in that impersonation.
Yeah, I definitely think that's true. And that's the one thing. It's kind of the difference I think between looking at like if you were to see Dana Carvey, you talk about OSNL,
Hmm.
do you see Dana Carvey do
George Herbert
George
Walker
Bush?
Bush. Yeah.
Yeah, not gonna do it.
Not
Right? Like when you watch
yeah.
him do that versus watching Jamie Foxx in Ray, right?
Right.
It's
Yes.
two different things.
Exactly.
But Jamie Foxx can also, because he's the most talented person in Hollywood, he can also like turn on what would be the comedy version of Ray also. But it's just, contextually like where you kind of put it. I'm a person, sometimes I wish I was like willing to be a little bit more exaggerated and goofy, and sometimes I am, but I also like really like doing the like I want it to sound really good. Like I am like, so I'm always
Yeah.
like a stickler for that. So I'm more likely to write something goofy and then say it as close to the person as possible rather than do like a Christopher Walken, like, oh, I'm Christopher, wow, wow, that, like
Right.
do it all crazy over the top. I'd rather it sound more serious, but then say something absolutely absurd.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's run through some of the greatest hits, man.
Yeah.
What are the impersonations that you get the most clicks off of?
It's no surprise. And you know what's funny? People will write things too. They'll be like, oh, this guy only does the same ones over and over. What I would say is the reason why, like, here's a good reason why, I've got a tendency to do Mark Wahlberg, right?
Yes.
Like, I do Mark Wahlberg first and foremost because he's funny to do. I think it's hilarious. The second thing is people love it, right? They click on it, they come back to it. I tell them all the time. I do Mark Wahlberg a lot because it's fun and hilarious and goofy for me, but people like it a lot. I also have a tendency to do Ryan Reynolds, who is different, but I like doing him as well. And the reason that I like doing Ryan is because you come to the same restaurant over and over again for the burgers and fries. If you want something else, you'll go somewhere else. And like, is the same reason why I will have a tendency to go back to Will Smith is because, like a lot of these actors are my favorites that like I grew up with and like that I like watching. And so I tell people all the time, like, I do these ones for it's so many reasons why. One, because I'm good at them, right? Like those are the ones I'm best at. So those are the ones I'm gonna do. I don't know why you're questioning that. Second, they're the ones that people like the most.
Right.
It does generate the clicks, it does generate the views, and then like you'll notice I'll sneak in more obscure impressions and stuff in between because I'm working on them, trying to get them better. But then three, I just think they're the most fun. Like a lot of times, it's just the people that whose movies I want to watch. Like I think are silly,
Right.
or I just think they have like a funny way of talking about things that I just think is like goofy. Like so many celebrities are just caricatures of their own selves, and so I think that's funny. Um, but that the greatest hits or the thing that gets clicks, like all of that stuff, I go back to those things because that's what people request the most. It's the things that do the best. It helps keep people watching. And then subsequently, like kind of, I don't know, it's like chicken or an egg thing, but I get better at those ones because I do them so often. And so
Right.
then I have more fun doing them because I'm better at them, which makes it more fun to play in that world. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I mean, I have got a whole laundry list of impressions that I do, but I definitely have my favorites and kind of fan favorites and stuff like that.
Statham and Antonio Banderas have been leaking into your content a lot lately. Am
Yeah,
I my face?
this no, you're right. And the reason why is because Jason Statham, when you put him next to one of these other guys, it's such a hard switch that for me, I want to show people I'm no one trick pony. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to kick some ass, and I'm going to do it in a way that serves me. So perhaps they want to see it, like they want to hear a different impression. But I like doing things that tell people I'm not, always going to do people that sound the same. It'll be a var swing. Do one of these ones. So I like doing stuff too that like I think shows range. Like even what
Yes.
5 or 6 that we did there, like they're so different, but they're all so hugely popular. They're
Yes.
hugely popular in terms of just like their status, which makes them more fun. It makes
Right.
it more fun. Like I can do impressions of people that people are less familiar with, but people are less familiar with them, so it's not as fun for people.
Exactly.
You know, it's fun for the niche people. There are niche impressions I do that like the people that are big fans of this one person love that one. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda is an impression, you know, that I love to do because I know theater people that love that impression and I think it's fun and funny. And he's done so many Disney movies and stuff that I think are great. But it's a really hard one, for example, for me to do on stage at a club because the general audience isn't as familiar.
Right.
And that's true online too, right? Like there's some that are just going to be more obscure, so they don't hit as well. They're good for the people that do them, so I still sprinkle those things in. But I'm always going to go back to the crowd pleasers.
So as a result of some of these videos going viral and your reach growing on TikTok and Instagram, what's been the most mind-blowing experience that you've had thus far?
I've had a lot of things that have just really, things that I thought wouldn't have been possible have become possible just even in the last year. I had an opportunity to audition for Saturday Night Live. I was in talks to go on Wild and Out. I just filmed something for College Humor. I've had opportunities to, people are finding me and then inviting me to audition or showcase or perform and do these things that I wouldn't have done. You know, it's been access to things for me still living in Omaha that I would not have happened, that wouldn't have happened for me if I didn't have online. It just wouldn't have happened. You have to move, you know? And so now when we're talking about talking about people leaving and moving to achieve their goals and things, I just feel very fortunate to have tried to make the absolute most of every resource available to me in Omaha. That means I'm going to the open mics. That means I'm going to the club. I'm going to the indie spot. I'm playing the bar. And I'm also reading everything that's online and practicing my writing and creating online content and trying to get my name out there. Like I'm trying to maximize my opportunities and make the most out of my circumstances. And so far, it's really paid off in a way that just literally would not have been possible 5 years ago without social media. Not social media that we know it today, right? TikTok specifically, and then obviously TikTok influenced what Instagram is doing. So both of those things have helped me. Both of those things has helped me better understand YouTube, which is helping me grow there, and Facebook. So all these different, you know, and I see all these opportunities, all these different kind of apps and social media platforms and things, which some comics balk at, some comics shake a finger at, or, you know, stick their nose up to. I'm not going to do that because it's all an opportunity. And for me, what I'm not doing is I'm also not like turning my back on live performance. I'm not getting up on stage and performing. I'm not still trying to be a better writer. I'm not, you know, I'm not going so far into social media that I lose sight of what I think is maybe the more highbrow form of the art form, you know, of the arts. Like I get it. I know what social media is, right? But I also know that it's an invaluable opportunity that you have to seize. If you're going to be in a market like we are, you got to do it. You got to take advantage of it. Why would you not? Why would you not try to do everything? And that's what I'm just trying to do, is just trying to take advantage. And so it's gotten me a lot of chances and things that I didn't think I would ever get to do.
I love that work ethic. Man, do I love that work ethic. Because not everybody has that. And a lot of people do balk at, like, TikTok in particular. And they're like, I'm not getting on this dance app for kids. And it's like, you have no idea what you're missing out on until you get on it. Like, as a podcaster, just doing this podcast thing, I have met more potential guests and had better reach with potential listeners by just embracing the platform. You know, am I the guy that you want to pull up in your For You page? Probably not. But has it helped the show? Oh, fuck yeah, it has. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, hey, look, you know, technology happens. It comes, and the people that fight it, the people that fight the wave, the people that fight the trend, the people that fight the future always lose. We're talking
Yes.
about time is the thing you don't get back. Time is also the thing that is undefeated. We will keep advancing. And that's not to say you have to embrace everything blindly. It doesn't mean you can't question. It doesn't mean you can't demand improvement. It doesn't mean you can't make it better. There was a time really early on in like a TikTok when it was mostly dancing and music. But then people from all backgrounds, whether you're a home renovator or a comedian or a musician or a painter or a dentist or a zit popper, like whatever your thing is, people made it their own because they embraced it and saw it as an opportunity. I mean, and that's just what it's always, and there will be another thing. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the metaverse and we all gotta get in and be virtual beings that have no grounding in reality, but somebody's going to do it and they're going to get there first. And if it's the wave, it's the wave. But it's really difficult, I think, to fight innovation. You're going to lose. You're going to lose every time. And it doesn't mean you can't always keep up. But I mean, that's just the way things work. They always have.
So what do you think, as a creator yourself, about the potential of TikTok going away? Because I think that's a lot closer to reality than we all really want to admit right now.
I think that's interesting. I think that fortunately we have a little bit of a model for this. Like Vine was a thing 10 years ago, almost exactly about 10 years ago. Vine was really happening. It was an app that was the biggest app in the world. It made some people huge, celebrity stars, millionaires, whatever. I think that if TikTok outright goes away, obviously TikTok's been huge for me in my reach in getting out. But I think that if it happens, we just have to kind of accept that as well. And just be ready to pivot and transition and move to other things and whatever, something will replace it. I don't think that TikTok's going to be around the way television has been around.
Right.
I think that internet will be around. I think that social media will be around like television and things like that. And that might grow to things we can't even imagine now. If they take TikTok away from either a national security standpoint or political standpoint, whatever's driving the concern, valid or not, it's something that is users and creators. Our options are adapt or die, and so I mean, for me, I'm not going to be the one that makes that decision. And if it's something that where it's just not allowed in the United States at all anymore, then I'm not moving to China to keep it going. Like I'll just figure out what else is next, Right. So I think people, I think there's more, and it is a sensitive thing because, what do we know about TikTok's data mining? We know that it's excessive, but we know that data mining is excessive any way you choose to engage in the internet, which is vastly true. Is there potential threats or are there security or political issues with who's mining the data and whether or not it has a relationship to what government has access to those things? Yes. But again, we are so far down in terms of the trickle for decisions for whom that makes sense that our job is to just adapt. And right now it's here and I'm going to keep using it and benefiting from it. And then if it goes away, I mean, I'm smart enough to be able to make sense as to why, if it does. And I think you just gotta adapt. I'm not going to die on the TikTok hill. But I'll benefit from it and hopefully grow because that's what the people from Vine did. Vine went away. They moved into YouTube and they used YouTube as a bridge. And then now they're all on TikTok and Instagram and these things. And so there's a model and there are people we can model to show us what success is. But the model is always adopt, adapt, and survive.
It's a sensitive topic because I know and I make the choice as far as my podcast goes and my content creation goes is I never get political. I won't talk politics. I won't touch religion because I think that's unique to everybody and the things that make us different are what make us great, right? the whole TikTok thing was originally a partisan type of issue, and now it's become a bipartisan issue. So that's why it seems a little bit more likely that it's going to happen now than, say, even a year ago. But I will say, if I was a software developer for Meta right now, I would redevelop Facebook Reels to make it as accessible or more accessible than TikTok. Right now is prime time. But that's nerd rant aside.
No. I love the nerd rant of it. And because I'm so active and use these things too, like, I am interested in this conversation. Instagram tried to do it and it flopped, and they reversed it. But it's smart maybe to make Facebook the place that does it, because Instagram's not going to be the place. Somebody else might come in. Who knows? I think we'll see individual bans, government devices and state devices and things like that first. If it goes away, I mean, I think it's maybe too popular right now. Like, it's a little too popular. It would be too divisive of an issue. Even if it's bipartisan, it's too popular. It can't be stopped right now. But if the perceived threats become reality, if there is a major data breach, if there is a major mishap in a situation and the popularity tides turn, I think I could see it happening, at which point people will they'll just jump ship somewhere else, but we'll have to see how those winds blow. I don't know, man.
You sure you weren't adopted by a farmer in Kansas, man? 'Cause you got some really good mindset here.
Yeah. Have fun, humans. I'll be fine. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Well, man, this has been awesome. One thing I like to throw to my guests towards the end of every episode is I like to ask the big question. And the big question is, with everything that's gone on the past 3 years, and we are actually this week, as we're recording this episode, we are at the 3-year mark this week of when the world started shutting down. With everything that's gone on the past 3 years, what's your advice for making the world a better place tomorrow than what it is today?
I think the number one thing you can do is the same thing has always been, is treat people with kindness. Put positivity out there. I think people could listen better and be open. And I think that it's also okay, as much as we can adapt and grow and things like that with technology, I would say it's okay to listen to somebody that has an opinion that's different from yours and do your part to understand that opinion rather than try to justify your preconceptions about whatever their belief is. If you're willing to adapt the future of technology, just know that people aren't going anywhere. And if we can listen to them and try to understand better, it's okay to just embrace that and move on and grow and put some positivity out there. Listen to other people. Well, I mean, we learned these things. We learned when we were kids.
Yes.
And it shows itself now. It shows itself now maybe more than ever. And so that's kind of the energy that I want to put out there. I'm never, a small thing specific to social media, you have an option. If you see something you don't like, you can comment on that thing or you can go on about your day. And I think that a lot of times people decide that they want to get into the fight and they want to comment and they want to, whatever. But guess what? All that comment is going to do is show you more of that thing, because that's how algorithms work. And the more that you engage with things in life in a negative manner, the more that negativity is going to stick around. Life is its own algorithm, and that negativity is going to keep pushing itself back into your face the more that you put it out there. But if you're engaging with the people and the things that you love and you're putting positivity out there and not trying to infringe on others in a negative way, everybody's better for that.
Yes. All right, my friend, tell everybody where they can find you online.
Yeah, man, I'm at Cameron Logsdon, CameronLogsdon on everything.
Awesome. You also have a website, www.cameronlogsdon.com.
That's right.
Wasn't that a nice pitch? You know what I want to see? I want to see you sneak into a Hy-Vee, Go to the performance-inspired aisle and start reading labels in your Mark Wahlberg voice and start pitching stuff. Come on, man. Yeah. It's like low-hanging fruit.
It is.
Don't they have a Wahlburgers at one of the Omaha locations now?
They've got them at a couple of them. And you're right. I just got to go in and just do it. Sometimes these are the things. This is why I need writers, because I need people.
A couple of Omaha guys would only understand this, though.
They would love it. No, I'm in it, though. I talk about niching down. This is a Mark Wahlberg impression for Omaha guys that shop at Hy-Vee, but specifically this Hy-Vee at this time when this item is in stock. So anyway, so here we are, Hy-Vee,
Well, he has that whole supplement line. That is the weirdest partnership on the planet.
It's so funny.
Anyways.
Yeah, it's funny, man. It's just a mess.
Cameron Logsdon, thank you very much for doing the podcast. The world is a better place with you in it, my friend.
They're too kind. Thank you so much for having me.
Once again, I want to thank Cameron Logsdon for being on the podcast today. Make sure you give him a follow on TikTok while you still can. And if not, give him a follow on Instagram. Also visit him at www.cameronlogsdon.com. If you are being generous with the follows, make sure you follow Caught on the Mic on TikTok while it still exists, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. Also visit me, www.caughtonthemic.com. Feel free to shoot me an email at caughtonthemic@gmail.com. I look forward to talking to you. This has been Caught on the Mic with Michael Clark. I'm Michael Clark. Till next time, thank you.